We are Southeastern 16. We're talking SEC football. We're talking some Florida Gators football. Now, the voice of the Florida Gators, Sean Kelly, joining us. And so we're going to break down the Florida Gators heading into their matchup this weekend with the Georgia Bulldogs. They're in Jacksonville. Before we dive into it, let's talk about Bet Online. They bring you all of our content. Hey, basketball fans, it is that time of the year again. The NBA is back. From opening tip-off to buzzer beaters, BetOnline has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all of your favorite teams. This season, every game matters, so go to BetOnline. They've got every stat, matchup breakdown, and even live odds to bet on during the games. It's not just the NBA. BetOnline has odds on everything from football, the World Series, NHL, to political props. So head over to their website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Sean Kelly is the voice of the Florida Gators. And, Sean, we appreciate you coming on today talking some Florida football ahead of a big one Saturday with Georgia.
Excited to do so. Excited about this weekend. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, certainly. And when you look at Florida, just coming into the season, all the talk was this is the toughest schedule in the country. You know, what was this Florida team going to be? And we see Florida drop 2 of the first 3 games of the season. And so it kind of, the doom and gloom kept going, if you will. What do you make of Florida right now? Really, from you've seen every snap of Florida football this year. What do you make of this team that Billy Napier has?
Well, I see a team that's playing its best football of the season currently and coming off of a bye week. So, the bye week probably has its benefits, the positives of getting that before Georgia. But at the same time, it was kind of hard for me to sit there and say we should hit the pause button after what we've seen over the last several games. The Gators have won 3 of their last 4. They seemingly have recovered from the first part of the season. And with regard to that schedule, it's interesting. Florida State's not what everybody thought they might be going into the season. But some of the other teams on the schedule are probably better than they thought they would be. And if you look at Florida's 3 losses right now, they're all the teams, I think, currently based in the top 16 in the country. So Miami's been great. So is Texas A&M, just as an example. And so the schedule still remains daunting. And the toughest part of that schedule arguably begins Saturday against Georgia. And, along the way, we've seen, things change. Florida's defense came to life. It actually became what I think we all thought it would be in August. Graham Mertz is no longer able to play. His season is over. DJ Lagway and the 2 quarterback system is now DJ Lagway and DJ Lagway alone. So there are significant changes as to the Gators in late October as opposed to what we saw in early September.
When it comes to DJ Lagway, what stands out to you about him, and what kind of a spark does he bring to this Florida team?
Well, he's exciting. He's a true dual threat quarterback who can come up with the explosive play, whether it be on the ground or now, as we've seen, through the air too. He's mature beyond his years, but yet he's still a freshman quarterback, and there are some things that go along with that, and those things will be either exposed or tested throughout the next couple of weeks. But there's no doubt he is what we all thought he might be coming out as the, Gatorade High School National Player of the Year. And I think that his work under Graham Mertz all spring, summer, even the early part of the season has accelerated his growth. There's still more to go, obviously, and I'm excited about seeing what his career turns out to be. But all signs point to a great, good, fast start, and that's a credit to him. That's a credit to Billy Napier and Graham Mertz too.
When it comes to, like you mentioned, Florida has won 3 of the last 4 games that they've played. What do you feel like has been, and even the Tennessee loss when you went to overtime and played really good in, what do you feel like has kind of been the turning point, has kind of been the reason that they've been able to be in these games and again, get 3 of the last 4?
Well, I think the number one on my list would be better play at the line of scrimmage on both sides. They found a way to better protect their own quarterback, and the Gators have found a way to better affect the opposing quarterback. So it starts there. That's the conversation starter, if you will. But I think that also, the transfer portal was kind to the Gators at the wide receiver position. That Chim DK and Elijah Badger have been outstanding. and the tight end positions developed a little quicker than maybe I thought. Hayden Hansen kind of leads that group. And then even with the loss of Trevor Etienne, whom we'll see this Saturday in a Georgia uniform, that running back room has been just fine. Montrell Johnson's been banged up here of late, but he's still the lead guy in that room. Unclear whether he'll be able to go this Saturday, but Jaden Baugh and Trayon Webb, Jacoby Jackson, all guys that basically are new to Gators fans this fall, have been plenty capable at running back. And the linebacking core has stayed healthy. I thought that was going to be the most steady thing on the defensive side of the football. That's proven to be the case, and they've proven to stay healthy, knock on wood, through these first 7 games too. So those are kind of the bullet points, if you will, about Florida and how they've progressed through the season.
Defensively for the Gators, again, I thought they did a really good job of shutting down Tennessee, kind of getting them off balance, making them make mistakes, stopping, or slowing down, the run game for Tennessee. What do you make of the Florida defense? And then they're facing a good offense again this week in Georgia. How can they handle that?
Yeah, a really good offense. Let's just be clear about who Georgia is. And I thought that, obviously Tennessee's high-powered offense and the tempo that they play was a really good test, and in a lot of ways passed by the Florida defense, even though they didn't win the football game. But they got some of that early tempo in their matchup with Mississippi State. I thought that was a good warm-up in that sense with regard to tempo. I think that they had heard plenty about how Kentucky was way more physical than the Gators were a year ago. And they took on that challenge and actually probably were more physical than Kentucky this time around. So becoming more physical, being more simplified in their approach. And I think being able to play against tempo type offenses has helped steal them a little bit. Now the test is against the Georgia team that can really move you at the line of scrimmage and has skill and ultra high level talent at all their positions, including a quarterback and Carson Beck, who I know he's thrown some interceptions here of late and all that, but he's still Carson Beck. And one could argue he's the best quarterback in the SEC. So while they've handled some different quarterbacks who have transferred into various programs and whatnot, now they face a guy that's been entrenched in that Georgia system, that's played in the biggest games in college football. Beck's a whole different deal, and that's kind of the new exciting challenge for this group this weekend. Not to mention, as you mentioned, their old friend Trevor Etienne, and they also have plenty of skill on the edge too. So all those things come into play, and they'll all get tested in a variety of ways against these next 4 opponents.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I wanted to go to next, because obviously Georgia, one of the top teams in college football. Texas is on the schedule after that. LSU playing really good football right now. Ole Miss is a team that could be a playoff team. Then Florida State to end the season. What can Florida do to keep themselves in these games, starting this week with Georgia and then the rest of the way? What are some things to you that Florida has to do to be in these games?
Well, I mean, the takeaway battle is a big one, right? And if you're looking at Florida, who's more than a 2-touchdown underdog in this, they've got to find a way to steal possession or two. Their takeaway numbers are much better defensively. Florida's also done a little better job taking care of the football on the offensive end. So win that turnover battle is a monster one. Anytime that you're an underdog, or you're playing high caliber opponents that have the ability to score on any touch. And you also got to be careful here with regard to self-inflicted wounds, whether it be putting yourself in bad field position, stalling your own drive because of a penalty, or, just like I said, turning the ball over, putting it on the ground or whatever. That, I don't want to say there's no room for error, but you have to find a way to cut down on any errors that you yourself can be responsible for, and then find a way to take advantage of your opponent's errors in some way, whether that be take the football away or beat them on special teams in a lot of cases.
When it comes to just being a radio voice, I know you have a chance to talk with the coaches, the players, and kind of get in the program. What do you feel like the vibe of the Florida football program is right now, sitting 4-3, about to head into this tough stretch?
They went into the season kind of with a chip on their shoulder. They heard plenty about this, how tough the schedule would be, and wanting to get Florida back to relevancy again. And then they had the bad start, right? And in a lot of ways, I was a little concerned that Napier could lose the locker room. There'd be some infighting going on the roster, those kind of things. But the one thing that's been pervasive now since the spring is that this group really likes each other, and they've got good leadership at the top of the locker room. And what's happened is that they were able to overcome the tough start, really take advantage of their first bye week, and really buy in to what's going on. So Napier didn't lose the locker room. There wasn't infighting amongst the players on the roster. And the strong leadership was able to carry them through a little bit to where they could start to get or see the reward of the work that was put in. And so now they've had a little bit of confidence, and I think that's a powerful thing in the way that they've played here recently. And so that places them in a position to where this is probably their one game off, maybe from where even optimistic folks could have seen them going into these final five. And so in a lot of ways, obviously injuries are a storyline moving forward, but for as so much as the makeup of the team or the vibe, as you said, I think that was the word you used, it's in a good place. It's where it needs to be with the challenge ahead.
That's good to hear. Again, Florida, Georgia in Jacksonville, Florida, this Saturday. I know it's a big rivalry game, great atmosphere, I'm sure. I know you've been able to call a couple of these now. What is this game like between Florida and Georgia, and kind of the atmosphere around it?
It's as good as it gets. I've had the privilege of being at some of the big, cool rivalries and bowl games over my career and whatnot. This ranks right up there with them. There's a reason why the fans call this hate week on both sides. It just has such a great long history. It seems to go in spurts, if you will, right? That it's never been really a series where there's been this exchange. One year you're going to get this, next year we'll get this. Georgia's had the better run of this here of late, obviously, but Florida's had their runs too in this series. So you get into this mode of, for a stretch of years, one fan base puffs their chest out and feels invincible, and then the other, is in this, I guess, dungeon of doom, if you will. I mean, that's how dramatic this gets sometimes. But on any given year, it can flip, right? And then does the tide turn back toward Florida? And if so, for how long? Obviously, the first halves here recently have put an end to any hope for Florida in the second half of these games. But just like with a lot of rivalry games, you never really know. And even in the transfer portal era, you think that maybe some of the ferocity of the rivalry amongst the players would maybe not be as strong as it was in the past, but that doesn't seem to be the case. They all pick up on it right away that this is the biggest rivalry on Florida's schedule. Same goes for Georgia. And so when you split that stadium down the middle and it's red and black on one side and orange and blue on the other, and the tailgate scene is what it is, it's the makings of a great college football Saturday. One that, we hope that in the landscape of all these things that seem to be always changing, that this thing kind of maybe still holds its charm and its excitement.
Sean Kelly is the voice of the Florida Gators. Sean, for those of you who want to listen in to you guys on the radio Saturday, how can they do that, and when will they hear you guys on?
Well, we'll take the air at 12:30 on Saturday. Kickoff will be just after 3:30. It's, on the TV side, it's the big 3:30 Eastern window for ABC, ESPN, and their new SEC package. As far as the radio network goes, it's on 55 affiliates across the state of Florida. And you can also catch it on the Varsity app, which is free to use and produced by Learfield, who holds the rights to the radio broadcast for the Florida Gators.
Well, Sean, really appreciate you taking some time talking some Florida football with me. We'll have to catch up with you again soon. Enjoy the game Saturday, and appreciate your time.
Thanks. You all enjoy a great weekend in college football as well, and we'll catch back up with you on the other side of it.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sean. We are Southeastern 16, presented to you by BetOnline.